we gonna talk like this the whole episode?
What?
Hey guys, welcome to the podcast, Fears for Queers. Welcome back. Thanks for joining our first episode. We're going to get started with a spooky tale of mine that is really one of my favorites. I have done many projects on it, done a lot of research. I'm super excited to share that with you guys. Allison, is there anything you want to say?
Yeah, I'm here to listen and add my unsolicited thoughts
Love it.
to everything. So, cheers!
Cheers, mate. You want to talk about our costumes, bruv? Because I don't think they're really getting it. I don't have my newspaper.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, that was too much titty. I tried to be Victorian as much as I could at Goodwill.
And
Got
the
these
guillotine
guillotine earrings.
really
That
sells
was,
it.
thank you. I was just going for the big titty vampire bimbo from Resident Evil 8. I felt
Very
really
popular.
inspired.
Oh yeah,
I felt very, yeah.
she's
Ooh, look
goals.
at that.
Absolutely.
Ooh. Do you see it? Like, flash.
It
I can't get
shines,
it to
yeah.
do it again. Yeah.
But also your hair. Honestly, when I was so I used Jack the Ripper as the story base of an opera I wrote for my undergrad. And honestly, you've got like the makeup and the hair of exactly like what I picked, which was historically accurate. So you're not that far off, honestly.
Oh, so you didn't cost me.
I didn't cost you because you live in another city, mate. You have to drive. You have to drive.
And no, this is me running.
Oh, right. I forgot. You don't have a car. We just sprint everywhere. We're like Naruto. We just go everywhere. Well, if Naruto's running, it's like this, actually. But
Before we get started, would it be okay if I bitched about my day?
hell yeah, dude. I'm sure everybody wants to hear. I'm ready. Let's tear down some people.
Nobody wants to hear. They're gonna skip
No,
past
they're
this.
not.
All I was gonna say is that I embarrassed myself earlier today because I've been trying to get a phlebotomist gig with the cert I got, but I've been having trouble because I live in Lubbock, Texas,
Middle of
which
nowhere.
is a Texas Tech dominated town.
Definitely.
If you don't go to Tech, you're not getting a job, essentially. I went to ASU, their sister school that nobody likes. I rolled up to my job today and I sit down and she's like, "Oh, you haven't been able to find a job in phlebotomy." And I was like, I started complaining about Texas tech culture. And once she was wearing a tech mask and I didn't even notice and I just kept going. And I was like, yeah, ASU is like the redheaded stepsister of Texas Tech, and she has red hair.
Was she also a stepsister?
Just like flaming. I got a second interview.
Oh, nice. Good.
I don't.
You're like, I don't
I
know
just
how.
I roasted her twice in the first like 3 minutes.
Maybe she
so
respects you for
that's
it.
been my day.
She was like, she just walked up to me, tech mask, and told me how it was, man. Redheaded stepchild, redheaded stepchild. She just told it like it was.
How's your day
great.
been?
Oh, it's been all right. I mean, things are crazy with grad school and everything. I'm going to be graduating this semester, so yay! That's fun.
Yes.
Got all of my final projects. We have something called an oral exam where you just go up front of a oh yeah, exactly. No. You go in front of a panel of your previous professors and they basically quiz you again on stuff you've already learned just to make sure it's, it's all up here. But so prepping
Jeez.
for that. Fun fact, I am making a video game as my final project. It's an RPG, kind
Wow.
of fantasy horror kind of thing. It's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, I did something live. Like I told you guys, I did an opera for my undergrad. I have a music degree. So for my master's in music, I wanted to focus on some electronic media. And I'm really passionate about video games and storytelling. So this seemed like a pretty obvious way to go. But yeah, that's a little bit
Heck
of our
yeah.
lives. Time to get
Pretty proud of you.
Thank you. I'm pretty proud of you as well. I can't stop. Once I start this accent, it's a real problem. You can ask anybody who knows me. Once I start the British
Just keep it
accent.
up.
So, before we get into the big story, Allison has some spooky local lore in her, as we've already discussed, tech wasteland of Lubbock, Texas.
Okay. So essentially, all that I've gathered, it's not even that spooky, but essentially, there is a place in town next to Buddy Holly's grave. It's
Interesting.
a bunch. It's a some railroad tracks, and it's called Hell's Gate.
Huh.
And essentially, there have been just a bunch of trigger warning lynchings
Yeesh.
and just people flinging people from trains
Oh my gosh.
just onto the because it's above the it like goes off the
I
ground
see. I see the appeal
and there's
now.
just
I
woods.
was like, why?
And people apparently have seen two little girls haunting the place. One's a brunette, one's a blonde. And there's also a spirit called the Hunter.
Hmm.
And this place is said to be essentially the bridge to the spiritual plane.
Okay.
So there's just
That's weird. Like,
little ghosties wandering around. I've been out there and I haven't seen Buddy Holly
I
yet.
was gonna say, I was like,
But
that's so random. Well, I didn't even know Buddy Holly was buried in Texas. First of all,
oh no, he was born here,
really?
brother.
I had no idea. I
Yeah.
literally had no idea. That's insane.
This whole town is just like wreck 'em tech and ooh you look just like Buddy Holly. Like that's it.
You just name it Buddy Hollyville.
Yep.
That's so bizarre.
So that's my story.
I wonder how the two little girls are related to it. Do you think that they like were thrown off the train?
They got thrown off.
Really?
Yes.
Oh wow.
And there's been said to be to this day still like satanic cults that will go out there
They're attracted to
do
it.
rituals,
Dang.
which all I saw was two like snot-nosed 16-year-olds when Riley and I went out there.
Oh my
And
god.
one, it smells like complete shit. I don't know where it's coming
I
from,
was Lubbock.
but it's an immense like we were like, let's go on a hike, bruv. And
And
then
then
we went out there and it smelled like dog shit. And there was just these two kids that were just like humming just under the
Ooh,
tracks.
nice.
So that's what we've
So
got.
that was the scariest part.
Yeah.
That's so weird to me. I imagine that I can't imagine any Satanists out there are interested in it because of Buddy Holly. Like I feel like the appeal, that sort of spooky effect, had to have just been there for forever. Some sort of train accident, I guess, and Buddy Holly was just like, that's the spot right there. That's a spot for me. The spooky
No,
train, the two little girls, that one.
he's literally buried like less. It is just like right next by. It's a really indiscreet grave too. Like you would miss it if you weren't looking for it. It's just Buddy Holly and like a little square plaque, and
It's
there's
just in
like
the
some
ground.
music notes. Yeah,
Oh
it's not
wow.
like a big statue or anything. It's just real modest.
I wonder why this specific place. It must have been significant in his life. That's why I'm wondering. I was
I
like,
mean,
did something happen on the train?
all I can say is that he was born here,
So they're probably just coming
so
back home kind
they
of thing.
just brought him home. Yeah,
I see.
because
I
he
see.
was the one that died in the plane accident. Correct?
I wrong person.
You didn't know
I
that?
had no idea. I don't know
Wait,
anything
hold on.
about Buddy Holly, like at
I'm
all.
gonna ask Riley. I'm gonna ask Riley to tell me a fact. Hey, Riley. Buddy Holly died in a plane wreck. Why did I do that? With Richie Valens.
Oh, so they're both. No, they're not both hunting.
No, but it's pretty tragic.
It
He was so
is.
young.
A lot of the musicians are like that. There's the whole 27 Club thing and just the White Lighter Club and everything. So there's a lot of.
I mean, he could have been like an Elvis, and he basically was.
Yeah, definitely. He was. We talk about him, which is why I think it's so weird that I didn't even know he was born and buried in Texas. Is that we talk about him in
Hmm.
our music history classes. We have a history of rock class. We have American music in the United States, and literally, I never even had known that he was in Texas. That is insane. But it makes a lot of sense when you think about Texas is like, that southern rock kind of sound always has that kind of 50s kind of undertone. You know what I mean? That was a lot of
Hmm.
his A lot of influence.
Blessed be. He's that way. He's
He's.
buried that way.
We're giving a high five now on the screen.
Oh, hold on. How to do
Are
the
you,
heart?
there we go. There we go. Something's wrong with our heart. My side is way bigger than yours. We're going to have a heart
I'm
attack.
just making a claw. I'm like,
Oh man. And I don't think I would ever want to be buried by railroad or railroad tracks.
I
I
don't
feel
think I
like
would want to be buried in Lubbock.
also that or in Texas at all.
No.
But I mean,
When
it's
I
just like
die, I just I think I want to be cremated and just like chunked off of a mountain somewhere. That's all I've got.
I want to be whisked onto the ocean, just perpetual dust, just floating.
That'd be nice.
There was this one RPG I played, and there was a robot character that was like a person, and then their soul got attached to a robot, kind of Full Metal Alchemist style. And
A game.
it's called Pillars of Eternity. It's really good. It's one of my favorite RPGs.
Oh, wait, did Andrew buy that for my birthday? No, he got me
No,
Broken Age.
Broken Age, right? Pillars,
Okay,
although
not the
Pillars
same
of
game.
Eternity. No, no, no. But it's really, really good. One of the side characters that you can get into your party, like I said, is a robot. And at the end, it's really like sad, but that was kind of the sentiment I was going for. Is that because she can never die technically because robot, her good ending is her just like floating in the ocean forever because she doesn't ever have to think. She's just laying on her back and just kind of just always getting moved gently by the waves. That was kind of the vibe I was going for with the whole ashes in the wave thing. You know what I mean? You just
Oh my god, I need to play this game.
It's so good. Oh my god, it's so good. I always am a dwarf pirate wizard fire godlike type, so I'm just this edgy short bastard. Which I mean, no different
Have
than
you
real
played
life, but
have you played Franbo?
no, I haven't. It's
Okay, you
good.
should it's a point and click adventure game. It's like really
Ooh.
scary and creepy.
Oh,
I
I
don't
think
want
you
to
showed me
spoil
some of
it
it.
for you. You're a little
I
girl that ends up in an insane asylum.
right. I think you have shown me like this a small part of it. I'm like remembering some. Was the art style kind of creepy and weird?
Yes.
Yes, yes, I remember that. That looked really interesting to me. That's definitely right up my alley.
Okay, if I play Pillars of Eternity, you play Franbo.
Absolutely, brother. I'll do it with you. I'm ready for a new game
Okay.
anyways. I just keep replaying Pillars of Eternity. I'm replaying it right now, actually.
I'm on
But
my 400th playthrough of Skyrim.
oh, I've never even played Skyrim like all the way through.
What?
My dad, he took over the PlayStation and he played Oblivion and Skyrim and he was playing it all the time and I just had no interest at
Nerd?
that point. I know. That happened with Mass Effect 2. If you're listening, Dad, you stole Mass Effect 2 from me. But he knows that. He knows
Did
that.
he
We laugh
watch the
about it a
first
lot.
one?
Yeah,
Did he watch the
yeah,
first episode?
yeah. Both my parents have watched it.
Are they just like at me? Are they
No,
proud of
no.
me?
Yes, they're always proud of you for sure. They were just
Okay, thank
they
God.
think it's just so funny because they're just like it sounds just like senior year of high school. Like we're just in my room screaming about nonsense and just laughing until 2 in the morning. You know what I mean? They
The
were
good
like
old
it sounded
days.
just like that. Oh man. All right, so we're gonna get into the nitty gritty of the Jack the Ripper story. It is a very famous one. A lot of people probably know about it. I've got my own take on what I think the conclusion is, and I've just been really interested in a lot of the story. So, for some content warning before we get into this, there are a lot of gruesome details and some very dark topics that we're going to be discussing. So, if you want to skip through that, I will be making different timestamps if you want to skip through. Just because I want people to be able to appreciate this for those who like creepy, scary things without triggering anybody or causing anybody emotional distress. So, before we get too far in it, I'm just going to give some background. So, the reason we're all dressed up and being goofy is because this story takes place in London in the 1880s. Specifically, what we're going to be talking about are the murders of what's called the Canonical Five, which takes place throughout starting in the year 1888. in this area in London, it was called Whitechapel Square. It was the band Whitechapel actually is about Jack the Ripper.
Oh, I didn't even know
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. And so it's about this area, which was a well known sort of like industrial slum in London. There were a lot of prostitutes living in the area, a lot of immigrants, specifically Irish immigrants, were a big influx in the area, as well as Jewish refugees and Russian ones as well, other Eastern European ones. It was a very much.
Oh, so that's a he's already targeting like minorities and sex
Oh,
workers. I
yeah.
hate him.
Oh,
Hate him.
yeah. Oh, yeah. No, no, he's
Of
not a
course.
nice guy. Not a nice guy by any means. But the area became overcrowded. It's kind of like in New York, where all of the working class people are living in one area and the housing is shitty and there's overcrowded, and it's kind of like that in terms of like an American um parallel with that. So, specifically, the population was increasing to about 80,000 inhabitants by 1888, which, it doesn't really sound like a lot to us, but at that time, the area didn't have the resources to expand for that. So, unfortunately, a lot of the immigrants were turning to prostitution, which was why that was so rampant in this area. It was, of course, illegal, but, everybody was on the up and up with it, and a lot of the police force were in on it anyways. But anyway, there was a lot of crime happening in this area. And one of these specific crimes that was happening starting in about 1882 to 1883 were a lot of murders that were getting more and more graphic. Um, Scholars that have studied this case have argued about kind of an overreach of murders happening before the canonical five and after the canonical five, but they were sort of too different. Because if we talk about serial killers and what they do, they have something called an MO, or a modus operandi, which is how they carry out their crimes. And that's how you can link them. So what they were finding is that even though these crimes were similar, they were a little bit too different. And it wasn't like murder was just some rare thing in London in the 1880s. You know what I mean? I don't think it was rare anywhere at the time. So, and especially in like an overcrowded area, I can think of tons of overpopulated, overcrowded areas that have high crime rates in America. That's definitely just due to the social structure of the systems there. So, as the police investigation started into these various murders, between 1888 and 1891, the canonical five were circled. This includes Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly. Jack the Ripper himself only has a name because the police station in that area would receive letters. And some of these letters were signed. These were people claiming to do the murders, but the first couple of letters really sounded fake and like people looking for attention.
Yeah, they must have been so bored back
Well,
then.
I know, there's no
They couldn't go on
they couldn't
Twitter.
just
They had to write these
they
letters.
couldn't doom scroll. They just had to pose as serial killers, to get a thrill. So they were calling themselves the Ripper from Jack. There was a letter signed. I think it's called Your Buddy or Your Pal, something like that. This is kind of egging on the police force. Um, as we'll talk about later, there's only one letter that they think that was actually sent by the real Jack the Ripper, and we'll get into why that letter is extremely specific. So I'm going to be a little bit different. I'm a little bit more kind of a lecture sort of a thing behind my storytelling. I like to just say it as it goes, so it's not going to be the amazing storytelling experience we had last time from Allison. So if you want your
Yeah, yeah.
if you want your fireside chats, that's going to be her episodes leading, and we'll get in our jammies and our hot cocoa and we'll sit by the fire while Allison tells us a spooky story. But for me, I love all the science and the details, so I'm going to be a little bit different. But the first body that was found was of Mary Ann Nichols. It was found at about 3:40 in the morning, which is not really all that atypical from a prostitute timeline. This street was called Bucks Row. It's now Dunward Street in Whitechapel. It's still there. All of these places are still there. I'm sure that this area is overwhelmed with the tourism, with the, just the legacy of these murders happening there. The interesting thing about these bodies is they seem to, for the most part, be found relatively soon after they were killed. And we'll talk about later why I think that detail is important. But regardless, Marianne Nichols, she had last been seen alive about an hour before her body was found by another prostitute, Miss Emily Holland. They had shared a room together at a common working woman's house, and she was walking, Marianne Nichols was walking in the direction of Whitechapel Road the last time she was saw. When they discovered the body, they were pretty horrified to find some very gruesome details. Her throat was severed by 2 deep cuts, one of which severed all of the tissue all the way down to her spine.
Ah.
Yeah, I know. Anything on my neck, I'm just like, but yeah, it was really deep. That was something that's really significant. I'm sure that we'll start to find as we talk about more of these cases is that knife wounds that go down to the bone really show aggression in the serial killer. Like, this was a guy who was not happy with this lady. You know what I mean? This was not just a casual, just like, cut the throat. It was deep, deep, deep in there. Going to be getting even more graphic here, but there was also some genital mutilation. She was stabbed down in her lady bits twice. And the lower part of her abdomen was also ripped by another deep, jagged wound. So much so ripped, which is where he gets his name from, that her intestines were hanging out. Yeah.
No.
Oh, yeah.
No.
That's another thing that really gets me is like, if in any case, or even if I see an accident that's happened and your insides are on your outsides, I cannot handle that.
No. Nope.
Does that make you
That's
feel
all I
bad
have to
too?
say. That's all I have to say is no.
Yeah, exactly. It's horrifying. But in addition to those, there were also just a lot of mini just stab wounds along the side of her abdomen, and due to the shape of the wounds, they were able to determine they were all from the same knife, and they were all going down in a downward thrusting manner. And this detail I actually used in my opera. Andrew, my boyfriend, played Jack the Ripper in the opera, so I told him, I said, when you start killing the lady on stage, you need to take your stage knife and you need to go down, because that was how he did it. I really tried, even though it was a historical fiction operetta, I really tried to get as much of the London aspect and the accuracy of the case as possible.
Got a recording of that?
Yeah, I have an audio recording, which sounds like a lot of student musicians, but I would love to share it. It was a lot of fun. I'm really hoping I can get it some places. It's as any passion project you have. You make it because you love
You
it.
should share with the
with
class.
the with this class. I'll just screen share it next time. I gotta figure out. I think I'm gonna use this screen recording stuff I have to record it because there's only a Facebook Live video. Like, I don't know how else I would get that. You know
Mm.
what I mean? But anyway, this brings us to the second murder. This murder was at 29 Hanbury Street. It was at Annie Chapman's house. The door through which Annie Chapman and her murderer walked, that was where it was, and her body was discovered under the number sign that says what house you're at. So there's like the street signs, but in this area there were little number, like posts, like lamp posts that had the number that were hanging off. So she was found in between her doorway and the number.
Oh Lord.
Yes.
Just out in the
Yeah,
open. Well, so was the first one, wasn't it?
yeah. They were left in the middle of the road. A lot of these you'll find are just kind of there's a lot of serial killers. There's usually in a couple of different groups, and one of those groups is taking care of the body and dumping the body. I find that people who took care of the body in those cases had some sort of, like, it showed like remorse for what they did. When they dump the body, they don't give a shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're like, I got what I wanted and this is done. But Annie Chapman, who's the second victim, was discovered at around 6 a.m. near the steps of her doorway. Similar to Marianne Nichols, her throat was severed by 2 deep cuts. Same, all the way down. This time, her abdomen had been cut entirely open, with some of the flesh from her stomach and a section of her small intestines being taken out and placed on top of her right shoulder.
That's so
Yep.
extra.
Oh,
Why?
you have no idea.
I mean,
I'm
it's
about to.
extra to fucking murder somebody, but come on, dude.
Yeah, exactly. It's you're exactly. It's already at an 11 to kill somebody. And this is just crazy. And it's about to get crazier, dude. And like it just goes up from here on the extra meter. That's what's always fascinated me about this case is that when you see serial killers devolve, which is the term for when they start breaking from their MO and doing more and more crazy crimes, they usually get caught. But this is still one of the most well-known unsolved murder cases. You know? And that's strange to me because as I read, as I keep going down, you're gonna be like, how did this not get caught? Like he just keeps getting like crazier and crazier and crazier.
Well, that's why I'm like wondering because, already they're just in the middle of the road. Jesus, but I'm guessing it took place at night.
All of them were killed at night, and they were found very, very early in the morning, between like 3 and 6 in the morning. So what one of my main hypotheses is that it was obviously somebody who was presenting themselves as a customer to the working ladies,
Yes.
and that was the time bracket. It checks off everything in a serial killer's list. It has privacy, it has anonymity, and it will provide a good alibi because nobody is going to know that you're going to that you're going to a brothel or something like that because you're not going to tell anybody. um the further autopsy on Annie Chapman, in addition to all of those horrific things, revealed that her uterus and sections of her bladder and vagina had also been cut off and removed. So they were taken from the crime scene.
So this guy is a sexist pig, obviously. He has some issue with
Oh,
women. Oh my god. What an incel.
this is literally incel culture before. You know what I mean?
Yes. Dead
This
ass.
was a woman hater, no doubt, and that's revealed in specifically attacking the reproductive organs and the genitals. It is, ooh, 1,000% a woman hater. Yeah, that's my own hypothesis too. Like I agree with you. Whenever they were starting the investigation into Annie Chapman's murder, she described the person that saw her described her with a well established gentleman. She was described as being seen with a man that had a shabby, genteel appearance, is what the report says. So I'm guessing that means just like I look right now, as any normal dude in the 1880s would have looked, just a button down and an overcoat. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know what else that would mean. According to the eyewitness, the man had asked Annie Chapman just a very short question: "Will you?" And she responded with yes. And then they walked away. So that's kind of reinforcing that whole this was probably somebody posing as a customer. Now, I'm sure
Yeah.
because they're all on the hush hush about prostitution back then. They don't want to mention that they want to see each other's, naughty bits. They're like, "Oh, will you accompany me to the garden?" And they understand that means have sex. Definitely a specific code for that.
That's me and Riley.
"Ew, Riley, accompany me to the garden to water the plants." Is that how it goes down?
Yeah. Hey Riley, you wanna go take a sniff of the chutney?
You want to bake the beans,
No,
as it
don't
were.
talk back to me. This is a professional. He said, "Oi, governor." He want. Shut up.
I love it. Riley's our unofficial just dance mom watching us do our project.
And he says you're the dance mom. He said thank you.
Oh, I heard a very soft echo. Thank you.
Riley says I'm gonna get canceled for talking to him that way.
Hashtag.
Please don't cancel me. No, we love each other very much. We're just
I'm gonna.
it's a joke.
I'm
It's
gonna.
a fucking joke.
This episode is gonna be titled hashtag Justice for Riley. Nothing else.
Babe, can you grab me a beer?
Can you grab me a beer, babe? See
Hey,
a
babe.
beer
Babe,
flying.
can you grab me a Truly?
Yeah.
Deadass. I'm serious though. Can you grab me a Truly?
Man, I was getting you a Truly.
Oh my god. Well, anyways, if you could please continue.
No, you're good. You're good. You're good. So the next two murders 3 and 4, the bodies were found together. So that also makes this a little bit different than before. So these two victims were Elizabeth Stride and Catherine Eddowes. The first victim's body was discovered around 1 a.m. in Dutsfield Yard off Burner Street, which is now Heinrich Street in Whitechapel Square. This was interesting because the cause of death was a single incision about 6 inches across her neck. But that was a lot different than before. When before he kind of stabbed all the way down to the vertebrae. This specific cut and how almost scientific it is led a lot of people at the time to believe that a butcher was the murderer. And there was a big investigation into a lot of the local butchers in the area. And this was before they started calling the murderer Jack the Ripper. They thought that this would be somebody that was known as the Leather Apron. Now, the Leather Apron is a totally different thing. But because of the scientific sort of knowing where the artery is, it's a small cut as opposed to before. That led them to believe at the time it was a butcher. So at this time, they were referencing the murderer as the Leather Apron. I hate reading this, but it cut across her trachea, just the windpipe, and that just... I know, and it sucks because, when I watch a lot of, hospital shows and stuff, and whenever they talk about, an emergency trach, I'm always just like, I can't breathe. It feels like they're stabbing me.
I do not watch that shit. I can't. Even though it's fake, I can't. Sorry.
That's the thing is, I could never be a doctor or anything. You being a phlebotomist blows my mind because even thinking about somebody else's blood, I will not do it. I will not.
Well, it's just all I do is one, I'm basically a professional vampire.
Hell yeah.
Two, all I do is draw blood, and it's I see it in the vial, and kind of
goopy.
When it's not me, it's different in a way, because I just kind of I'm there's the red goop.
Yeah, that I'm total opposite. If my bone is hanging out of my own body, I'm like, oh, whatever. But if it was somebody else's, I would just lose my shit immediately. I could not. I absolutely could not. Woo!
Boy.
So the interesting is that there are no other wounds on Elizabeth Stride. This led the detectives at the time to believe that Jack got caught or was interrupted by the sound of somebody coming, and so the only thing he could do was just quickly kill this lady, right? A lot of witnesses later talked about Elizabeth Stride being accompanied by a man around this time. They gave a lot of different descriptions, though, so it was inconclusive about if he was a well-dressed gentleman or a poor man, or if he was light-skinned or dark-skinned. They were all conflicting reports, but it was reported that she was with a man. This is where things get interesting. So like I mentioned before, the police station had received a lot of letters from people claiming to be Jack the Ripper. This letter specifically is different. It is titled the From Hell letter. That's how the letter starts off. From Hell. It was received by George Lusk, who was the leader of the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee at the time. The letters before, it was called Dear Boss. That was the kind of whole, hey pal, hey friend. The letters were Dear Boss, and there was a letter called Saucy Jackie. So it was people, trying to be on the nose. But this letter had...
Yeah, they sound like... It makes me think of that one part from American Horror Story Season 1 where he's like, why are you messaging Jungle Jim 69?
Yes! Yes! God, I haven't watched that show. It got so bad, dude. Oh my gosh. I okay, season 1 was okay, but yeah, exactly. They were just it was just really stupid. So it was obviously just people for attention.
Yeah, definitely.
This letter came with a small box. In the box, half of a human kidney that was yeah, it was being preserved in ethanol. So it was being um like taken care of and kept, you know? It was kept alive because the letter came well after the murder happened. It was a couple days after, you know? So that will be significant in after I reveal this. Catherine Eddowes, her body was found in a different square, 3/4 of an hour away from where the body of Elizabeth Stride was. So this happened in the same night, a little far away from each other over the course of a couple hours. Catherine Eddowes was a lot more like the other victims. Her throat was also severed. And this time, instead of having like multiple abdomen wounds, there was one huge one that also went down to the bone. And again, her intestines had been taken out and placed over her right shoulder.
What is that supposed to signify?
I have no idea, dude. If I had to guess, I mean, it's degrading, you know.
Yeah. That's just so
Um,
specific. It makes me think like what he was trying to replicate.
Definitely, it's kind of like, were you trying to?
Sorry, I'm too Truly's in, so if that's a dumb idea,
No, you're absolutely right because that's the thing is they have a reason for everything that they do. Whether they realize it or not, there's some sort of trauma or something that they can't get past. So they kill somebody instead. So, like, I don't know what happened to this person to make them want to take somebody else's intestines out and flop them on their shoulder. But it could just be another way of degrading the body since it's obvious he doesn't like women, you know?
yeah.
But in addition to that, the left kidney and a major part of her uterus had been removed. So the kidney that was sent with the letter was Edo's.
Oh my god.
Yep, her face had also been disfigured, with her nose severed, her cheeks slashed, and cuts measuring little around half an inch through each of her eyelids. Yeah.
He knows these women.
Right? Right?
No, it's so intentional and so visceral and aggressive. There's no way he didn't like I feel
Uh,
like it had to be more than just a woman hater at this point.
I also have a theory about that because I think you're right. I think that
Okay.
this goes beyond women hating into something much darker. Um, in addition to that, there was another incision that was between the eye and the ear in the shape of like a triangle that was cut out. So I'm guessing I know that serial killers like to take tokens and sometimes it is just parts of their body. So I'm wondering if the kidney was obviously used to scare the police station because that's where he sent it.
Yes.
But this like just random triangle shape, you know? I don't know what somebody could do with that.
That's that sounds like some kind of like prize trophy
Right?
situation.
I know,
Ugh.
I know. Um the medical examiner at the time had determined that all of these mutilations had to have taken at least 5 minutes. 5 whole minutes spent of just ripping up somebody. And I think because the first body looked like he was rushed or interrupted, that pent up aggression was taken out in this second one. Because this one went
Mhm.
so much further. It's not the furthest, as we're about to find out, but it went so much further.
Oh no.
Oh, dude, you're not ready. You're absolutely not ready. These bodies.
God, Mildred's here with me.
Oh, you can hug her for emotional support.
She left. I'm on my own.
Oh, poor baby. All right. What was I saying? Right. So the other bodies had been found by other working women. These were different. This was found by a man. I think he was just a local salesman. He had walked through this area before and he described seeing a man with edos. And they weren't able to be like identified before, but just all of these eyewitnesses being described as only men, I also think is interesting to me. Um, that these women are alone with them, and it again goes back to that motivation of portraying yourself as a customer, because no madam at any brothel or any sort of sex workhouse is gonna tell them to turn away a customer, you know, especially when it's a really impoverished, overpopulated area. A piece of Edo's apron was found like a few ways down the street. Um, just as a weird side fact that doesn't happen any other time. So I wonder if he was trying to take more trophies than before. I'm not really sure. Mary Jane Kelly was the last victim. She lived off of Dorset Street, which is nearby. Her body was discovered at 10:45 a.m., but when they looked at the injuries and everything, and when they were putting the timeline in their mind, it was obvious that she was also killed within that same time frame as the other victims. Oof, I gotta mentally prepare myself for this one. I'll just tell you that the first description is of her face, which had been, and this is their quote from the newspaper at the time, hacked beyond all recognition.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. So before, when he kind of messed with the eyes, the whole face just completely slashed. Her throat, like the first couple of victims, had been severed all the way down to the spine. Her abdomen was emptied of all of its organs. Her uterus, kidneys, and one breast were placed beneath her head.
Oh my god.
Yep, and the other intestines were placed next to her foot.
Oh my fucking god.
Her heart was missing from the crime scene.
So these other murders, is that assuming that it's not him and someone copied him?
Yeah, especially the ones afterwards definitely came across like a lot of copycats, which is really common with serial killers.
All these women knew each other, right?
Uh-huh. Mhm.
Yeah.
You're getting to where I'm going. You're smelling what I'm stepping in, Allison. All of these women knew each other, or they knew of each other. They were part of a connected family of prostitutes and brothels in this area. And I feel like that's really important, especially considering that the only people that would also know where these other women are were probably other working women, and their customers.
Yeah.
Especially when you think about the specific mutilations in this case, how they seem to be directed at um, biological female specific organs, even their secondary sex organs by taking off one of the breasts. It does feel like a lot of like a woman hating kind of vibe, specifically mothering, because the womb and the uterus were removed in some of the cases and they were specifically attacked. There was a lot of emptying from the abdomen, which in some sort of sick way to me maybe is like something about birth, you know?
Ah, that makes sense.
You know what I mean? Like not exactly, but something about the birthing process and being a mother and a woman is all the trigger for this specific killer. What doesn't add up to me though is that some of the women reported seeing the women with men. And I feel like that's also kind of a convenient excuse in a way. Let me explain what I mean by that. I'm not saying that it wasn't a man that killed these women. It is. I don't think another woman. I don't know. Something really bad would have to happen to me to justify cutting off another woman's breast. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I would have so much just internal conflict within myself You know, because I have those. I have those body parts. I wouldn't be able to take out a woman's womb. Um, so that part makes sense to me about thinking that it's a man doing these crimes. The angle I sort of went for in my opera that I think could be true is that there was a woman involved. Not a woman that was doing the murders per se, but these murders are pretty horrific and probably hard to carry out by yourself. And knowing where these women are, knowing how to contact them, and how to interact with them, really. I'm not really convinced a man knew how to do all of that on his own. And
Especially back then.
yeah, and especially when you think about, like, all you would have to do is tell somebody, I saw her with a man, because women were not even seen as, like, basically real people.
Yeah.
You know, it would be so easy to just pawn it off on a man. And I wonder if this was a survival thing where he approached a prostitute, and that always happens a lot with child predators. They get one child scared, and then they get them to bring them more children. And I wonder, did he corner this one woman and it was like, if you don't allow me access to these other women, I'm going to do this to you. I don't know if this was a woman complying, complacency and knowing what was happening. I'm not sure, but a lot of it doesn't add up to me about it just being a man, a single man by himself. When you think of, God, there's the horrific nature of it. It like that one report said, it takes time to do this to a body,
Yeah.
and body parts are heavy, and it's just, I feel like there was a woman involved in some regard, whether informing him of where the women were or aiding him in some way by getting people off of his trail.
I
I
think
just think that
she
there's,
had some kind of agenda towards
right? Maybe,
other sex
um,
workers.
that's an angle I hadn't even considered. Maybe it was just a matter of getting out your competition. Wow.
Wow.
I literally have never thought about that ever, Allison. And I have been thinking about this case for decades, brother, and I've never thought about it that way. That's what you're here for. No, but like it makes sense. It makes sense to think of, and especially if you think of the quality of life at that time compared to now. My God, it wouldn't be hard why someone would be like, sure, kill them off as long as I get to do my job. I
Definitely.
got to make money. I got kids. What if
And
they have children?
the listeners, not to say that exactly what happened. This is just purely
It's just us thinking.
theorizing. So if you don't
I mean,
agree, whatever. If you think maybe,
don't listen.
get out of here.
Yeah, this is just me spitballing because it hasn't been solved, And one of the angles is that the killer simply moved away. That was the angle I went. I did both angles in my opera, but what makes sense is that a lot of the time, if a killer is not caught and crimes stop in an area, it's because that crime has started in a new area that's far away,
Was there
unrelated.
ever reports of similar or
Um, the thing is in the area, kinda, but we already talked about that. But in regards to how detective things worked at that time, it would be really hard to understand that these murders that were happening in this area, like if they popped up in, like, Ireland, or across the pond in America, you wouldn't. It's not so easy to link them because it takes so
yes.
long to communicate. And I think that's something that really aided this killer was they had to have left. I doubt, unless it was a murder suicide at the last one,
Well,
but I
I
I
feel
severely doubt it.
like it was completely intentional and they were targeting these women because if this is so distinct and it's such a big case, I do still feel like even it might have taken longer, but it must have traveled. It must have
Oh
traveled
yeah,
because this is absolutely horrendous. So I think it was just completely targeted, like revenge based. If it
it
never
seems that way.
popped back up again. Which is insane to just do that horrific shit and then be like, all right, on with my day. Like, what?
I have no idea how, like, if this was a working man of the time, I have no idea how he would have the time to do this, let alone, be able. This is all happening at like 3 in the morning. You gotta go to work in a couple hours, It definitely feels like it's just the fault of technology being what it was at the time. It was hard enough to communicate by like letters and everything,
And if this had even taken place in like the 70s or something, I bet they still would have had like a way better chance of catching this guy or girl or whoever.
Oh, yeah.
Holy shit.
Whomst, we don't know. That's the thing. It might have been a team. Whoever it was really didn't like women. Whoever was involved in this was out to get them. And we're talking about incel. Maybe he was rejected over and over again. I mean, it also feels like he's got some mommy issues, and I don't know what serial killer doesn't have mommy issues, but like this is a whole, I'm getting like a Bates Motel vibe, that the reason he cut this woman open was to get inside,
I just watched that shit, like, I cannot believe that happened. That's based on a true story.
Mm-hmm. No. Oh, I've read it. I was gonna do it in an episode.
Good.
It's really freaky.
I have like I just don't know why, but when I have been getting into true crime, I've been like, oh, well, everybody knows about all the famous stuff, so I'm gonna get into the more like niche stuff. So it's really nice that you well, it's really nice that you're throwing all this stuff at me because it is new. But thank you so much for teaching me a thing or two. I have trouble sleeping tonight.
Yeah, this one's a hard one to process with yourself. You're gonna check your deadbolts are locked. I sleep with a bat next to my bed. I have a battle axe and a bat.
God.
It's my axe from medieval times.
I'll just throw Jasper. He's got thumbs.
I know. He'll just show them their thumb and they'll just leave. They'd be like, "Oh no,
literally, no. Yeah.
This cat has a thumb. No. Should be your guard cat."
I need a freaking weapon. All I've got is like a bass guitar with anime bitches on it.
You have those sword earrings
next to the door.
I'm good. One in each hand. I have too many random household objects that I've configured into weapons. It's a real problem. I need less.
I'm gonna go buy a weapon. Have you seen Mandy?
No, I need to. Riley told me to watch it too. I need to listen to our dance mom.
We can give you like a Shudder login. This is like on the podcast, but there's this just badass axe from the movie that Nicolas Cage makes, and we need it. Just
I need it.
Watch
absolutely.
It, please.
After hearing that,
is your trolling?
Thank you.
Oh no, he sounds like Napoleon Dynamite. Actually,
you sound like Napoleon Dynamite.
Did he say?
I am Napoleon.
Go play your Bloodborne, babe.
I will.
He's playing Bloodborne?
Yes, honey.
He's playing Bloodborne and he's getting his ass absolutely slaughtered by Vicar Amelia.
Oh, I beat her earlier.
Oh, you did? Finally? Okay.
Are you winning, son? Am I out of touch yet?
Are you winning, son? Oh my god. This is what zero pussy does to a motherfucker. Turns him into an absolute Neanderthal. God.
But yeah, I think we're wrapping it up here. Sorry if you guys can't sleep. Or sorry if your name's Jack. You got a bad rep now as a ripper. That's all we gotta say. Bye, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.
Y'all, everyone.
Bye.
Stay spooky.
Music, 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 music.